The Galactic Sovereignty Collective had ruled the Milky Way galaxy for more than 400,000 years. 12 ancient alien civilizations had joined together to form this powerful alliance. They controlled thousands of star systems. They commanded millions of warships. They believed they were the masters of all creation. These 12 races had seen countless younger species rise and fall. Some they allowed to exist as servants. Others they crushed before they could become threats. This was the way of the galaxy. The strong ruled, the weak served or died. There was no other path. When humanity first left Earth and began exploring nearby stars, the collective watched with mild curiosity. Human beings were strange creatures. They lived short lives, barely 100 years. Their bodies were soft and fragile. Their technology was primitive. They used simple fusion engines that moved their ships at speeds the collective considered laughably slow. The High Council of the Collective discussed these newcomers briefly. The hegemony, the most aggressive of the 12 races, suggested destroying them immediately, but others disagreed. Why waste resources on such insignificant beings? Let them expand for a while. Let them build their little colonies. When they became annoying, they could be swept away like dust. So humanity grew. They built colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. They sent ships to nearby star systems. They discovered worlds with breathable air and clean water. Millions of humans left Earth to start new lives among the stars. They were full of hope and dreams for the future. The humans knew they were not alone in the galaxy. They had detected signals from alien civilizations. They had found evidence of ancient visitors to their solar system, but they had not yet made direct contact with the collective. They did not know that powerful eyes were watching their every move. Admiral Oran of the hegemony was a warrior who had lived for 3,000 years. He had conquered dozens of worlds. He had exterminated species that the collective deemed dangerous. He was proud and cruel, and he enjoyed his work. When the High Council decided that humanity had expanded far enough, they gave the task to Oran. He smiled when he received his orders. Finally, he would teach these young creatures their place in the galaxy. The UNSS Prometheus was humanity's greatest achievement. It was a Titanic-class colony vessel, 2 kilometers long and carrying 50,000 people. Families with children, scientists and engineers, farmers and teachers, doctors and artists. They were traveling to the system to build humanity's most distant colony. Captain David stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the stars slide past. His wife was somewhere below, helping to organize the colony's medical supplies. His daughter Sarah, just 22 years old, served as a junior officer on the navigation team. 3 generations of the family, all traveling together toward a new world. The attack came without warning. Oran's fleet emerged from hyperspace directly in front of the Prometheus. 20 warships, each one bristling with weapons that humanity had never seen. The Prometheus had no military systems. It was a vessel of peace, designed to carry families to new homes. Captain tried to send a message. He tried to ask why. He tried to surrender. Oran did not care about messages or surrender. He gave a single order and his ships opened fire. The Prometheus died in flames. 50,000 human beings, including Captain David and his wife, were killed in less than 3 minutes. The ship broke apart and scattered across the void of space. There were no escape pods. There were no survivors. On Earth, people waited for news from the Prometheus. Days passed, then weeks. Search ships were sent to find the colony vessel. They found only debris and death. When the truth became clear, humanity fell into shock. This was not an accident. This was not a natural disaster. Someone had murdered 50,000 innocent people. Someone had destroyed their greatest ship. Someone had declared war on the human race. The governments of Earth demanded answers. They sent messages into space, asking who had done this terrible thing. They begged for communication, for explanation, for anything that would help them understand. The collective's response was simple and cold. A single transmission arrived on Earth, broadcast on all frequencies so that every human could hear it. "You have expanded beyond your permitted boundaries," the message said. The vessel designated Prometheus was eliminated as a warning. Remain within your current territory. Any further expansion will result in additional corrections. This is the will of the Galactic Sovereignty Collective. Obey or be destroyed. The people of Earth listened to this message in horror. Permitted boundaries? Corrections? The aliens spoke of 50,000 deaths as if they were nothing, as if human lives had no value at all. Some humans wanted to fight immediately. They demanded that Earth build warships and strike back against these monsters, but cooler heads understood the truth. Humanity's technology was far behind the collectives. Their ships were slow. Their weapons were weak. A war would mean extinction. Other humans wanted to surrender. They said humanity should accept its place in the galaxy, stay small, stay quiet, stay alive. Perhaps in 1,000 years they could try again. But most humans felt something else, something that burned deep in their hearts. It was not just anger or fear. It was a cold, quiet determination, a promise made in silence, a vow that would change the galaxy forever. The United Earth Council met in emergency session. Leaders from every nation gathered to decide humanity's future. They argued for days. They shouted and cried and blamed each other for the tragedy. But slowly, a consensus formed. President James of the African Union spoke for all of them. "We cannot fight them today," he said. "But we will not submit. We will not crawl. We will go silent. We will let them think we are broken. And we will use every moment of that silence to prepare. One day we will make them understand what they have done. One day they will know the cost of murdering our children." Earth went quiet. No more colony ships left the solar system. No more messages were sent to the stars. The collective watched and waited, expecting pleas for mercy or foolish attempts at revenge. Instead, there was only silence. The aliens thought humanity had accepted defeat. They thought the young species had learned its lesson. They returned to their ancient games of power and politics, forgetting about the small blue world and its fragile inhabitants. They could not have been more wrong. In secret laboratories and hidden facilities across Earth, humanity began to work. Scientists who had been rivals became partners. Nations that had been enemies became allies. Every resource, every mind, every ounce of human creativity was focused on a single goal. The silence would last for 3 years. And when it ended, the galaxy would learn that humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was something the collective had never encountered before. Humanity was patient, and humanity never forgot. The 3 years of silence were the busiest in human history. On the surface, Earth appeared defeated. Cities went about their normal business. People worked and lived and raised their families. But beneath this calm exterior, humanity was transforming itself into something new. Doctor was a physicist who had spent her career studying the strange properties of space and time. Before the Prometheus attack, her work had been considered purely theoretical, interesting but useless. Now, the governments of Earth came to her with unlimited funding and a simple question: how can we move faster than our enemies? Worked without rest, she gathered the minds from every country. They filled blackboards with equations. They built experimental devices that exploded or melted or simply disappeared. Many times they wanted to give up. The physics seemed impossible. Then on a cold night in her laboratory saw the answer. She had been looking at the problem wrong. Everyone had been looking at it wrong. You did not need to move faster through space. You needed to fold space itself. Wormholes, tunnels through the fabric of reality. The collective used something similar for their hyperspace travel, but their method was slow and required massive amounts of energy. Discovered a new approach using quantum-entangled dark matter. Her wormholes could open instantly, anywhere in the galaxy, using a fraction of the power. When she showed her results to the military commanders, they did not celebrate. They sat in stunned silence. This technology would not just let humanity match the collective, it would let humanity surpass them completely. General Stone was an old soldier who had fought in the last wars on Earth before humanity united. He was tired and gray, and he had planned to retire before the Prometheus died. Now he commanded Project Leviathan, the secret program to build humanity's new warships. The ships he designed were unlike anything that had existed before. The collective built their vessels for intimidation. They were covered in spikes and weapons, designed to frighten enemies into surrender. Built his ships for one purpose only: absolute destruction. The Leviathan-class dreadnoughts were 12 kilometers long. Their hulls were made from materials that humanity had invented during the 3 silent years. These metals could absorb energy weapons and redirect the power to the ship's own systems. The more you shot at a Leviathan, the stronger it became. Each dreadnought was powered by an artificial singularity, a tiny black hole contained within magnetic fields. This gave the ships nearly unlimited energy. They could fight for years without refueling. They could power weapons that the collective had never imagined. The main weapon was called the Judgment Lance. It fired concentrated gamma-ray bursts that traveled at the speed of light. There was no dodging this weapon. There was no blocking it. When the Judgment Lance fired, whatever it hit simply ceased to exist. But the most terrifying feature of the Leviathans was how they used wormhole technology. The ships could open portals anywhere at any time. They could appear behind enemy lines without warning. They could open small wormholes inside enemy ships, tearing them apart from within. They could even redirect incoming weapons through wormholes, sending enemy fire back at the attackers. 17 of these dreadnoughts were built in secret. They were constructed in underground facilities on the moon and in the asteroid belt. Each ship was named after a tragedy from human history. The Hiroshima, the Pompeii, the Holocaust, the Plague, and the flagship named after the ship that had started everything, the Prometheus. While the scientists and engineers built weapons, other humans prepared for a different kind of war. Psychologists studied the collective, learning how each of the 12 races thought and behaved. Linguists decoded their languages. Spies used hidden probes to map their territory and count their ships. The picture that emerged was both frightening and encouraging. The collective was powerful, but it was also arrogant and divided. The 12 races did not truly trust each other. They fought constantly for status and resources. They had not faced a real threat in thousands of years, and their military had grown lazy and overconfident. Sarah had survived because she was not aboard the Prometheus when it was destroyed. She had been transferred to a different ship just 2 weeks before the attack. A simple twist of fate had saved her life while her parents died. For 3 years, Sarah trained. She became one of the best pilots in the human fleet. She studied tactics and strategy until she could recite them in her sleep. She pushed her body until it was hard as steel, and every night she looked at a picture of her parents and renewed her promise. She would make them pay. On the day the silence ended, Sarah was given command of the UNSS Retribution, the second Leviathan-class dreadnought ever built. She was only 25 years old, the youngest captain in human history. Some questioned whether she was ready. General Stone silenced them with a look. "She has something none of us have," he said. "She has a reason to win that goes beyond duty or patriotism. She will not fail because she cannot fail. Her soul will not allow it." The message that broke humanity's silence was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Every species that had a radio receiver heard it. Every world that could detect electromagnetic signals picked it up. It was translated into thousands of languages so that no one could misunderstand. "To the Galactic Sovereignty Collective," the message began. "3 years ago, you murdered 50,000 of our people. You destroyed our ship. You called it a correction. You expected us to kneel." The message paused, letting those words sink in across a million worlds. "We did not kneel. We prepared. We have created weapons beyond your understanding. We have built ships that your fleets cannot defeat. We have developed technology that makes your ancient civilization look primitive." Another pause. "This is not a threat. This is a statement of fact. We now possess the means to end your civilizations, all of them, completely. We could burn your worlds to ash. We could crack your planets like eggs. We could end your species as easily as you ended the lives of our children." The final words were spoken slowly, clearly, so that every being in the galaxy would remember them. "But we are not monsters. We will give you one chance. 1. Attack another human vessel, target another human colony, harm another human life, and we will demonstrate what extinction looks like. This is Earth's only warning. Pray that you are wise enough to heed it." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, alien leaders gathered in emergency meetings. They analyzed the message. They debated its meaning. Most of them laughed. One young species against 12 ancient civilizations? Impossible. The humans were bluffing. They had to be bluffing. No one could advance so quickly. No one could threaten the mighty collective. Admiral Oran laughed loudest of all. He had killed their precious ship. He had murdered their families, and now they dared to threaten him. He would teach them another lesson, a final lesson. He began assembling his fleet. In the shadows of space, humanity watched and waited. They had hoped the warning would be enough. They had hoped that wisdom would prevail, but they had also prepared for the alternative. The Leviathans powered up their weapons. Captain Sarah sat in her command chair, her parents' picture tucked inside her uniform. "Come and find us," she whispered to the darkness. "Please come and find us." Admiral Oran stood on the bridge of his flagship, the destroyer, and smiled. Behind him floated 800 warships, the largest fleet he had ever commanded. Each vessel was armed with weapons that could crack mountains. Each crew was trained to kill without mercy. His target was New Geneva, humanity's colony. 2 million humans lived on that world, building homes and farms and dreaming of the future. Oran planned to turn those dreams to ash. He had not asked permission from the High Council. He did not need their approval. The humans had insulted the collective with their ridiculous warning. Someone had to teach them the truth about power. Someone had to remind them that they were insects pretending to be giants. "Admiral," his second-in-command said, "we are approaching the target system. Sensors show minimal defenses. One orbital station, a few transport ships, nothing military." Oran nodded with satisfaction. "Just as I expected. Their warning was empty words, prepare all weapons. We will burn this colony to glass and leave no survivors. Let this be the final correction." His fleet emerged from hyperspace above New Geneva. The planet hung below them, blue and green and beautiful. Humans on the surface looked up and saw the sky fill with enemy ships. Parents grabbed their children. People ran for shelters that could not possibly protect them. Terror spread across the colony like wildfire. Then something strange happened. Space itself seemed to tear open. A hole in reality appeared between the fleet and the planet. Through this hole came a single ship. Oran had never seen anything like it. The vessel was enormous, far larger than his flagship. It was black as the void between stars, with smooth curves that seemed to drink in light. It moved with a grace that should have been impossible for something so massive. "What is that?" he demanded. "Identify that ship." His officers worked frantically at their controls. "Unknown design, Admiral. Unknown materials. We cannot scan its interior. Our sensors simply stop at the hull." The strange ship came to a halt directly between the fleet and the planet. It hung there in silence, waiting. A communication signal came through. Oran accepted it, expecting to hear the desperate pleas of frightened humans. Instead, he heard a woman's voice, calm and cold as frozen steel. "Admiral Oran, I am Captain Sarah of the UNSS Retribution. You murdered my parents aboard the Prometheus 3 years ago. I have been waiting for this moment ever since." Oran laughed. "One ship. You bring one ship against 800. Human stupidity truly knows no limits. Surrender now, and I may kill you quickly." "You misunderstand, Admiral. I am not here to surrender. I am here to deliver a message. Earth warned you what would happen if you attacked again. You chose not to listen. Now you will learn what that warning meant." Oran felt a flicker of unease, but he crushed it immediately. He was a warrior of 3,000 years. He had destroyed entire civilizations. He would not be intimidated by a single ship and a young woman with a grudge. "All ships," he commanded, "destroy that vessel. Leave nothing but atoms." 800 warships opened fire simultaneously. Thousands of energy beams converged on the Retribution. Missiles streaked toward its hull. The combined firepower was enough to shatter a small moon. The Retribution did not move. It did not dodge. It simply sat there as the attack struck its hull. And nothing happened. The energy beams hit the black surface and disappeared. The missiles exploded harmlessly against armor that did not even scratch. Oran watched in disbelief as his fleet poured destruction into the enemy ship, and the enemy ship simply absorbed it all. "Impossible," he whispered. "That is impossible." Captain's voice came through again. "My turn." The Retribution began to move. It did not accelerate slowly like normal ships. It simply appeared in different locations, jumping through tiny wormholes that opened and closed in the blink of an eye. One moment it was in front of the fleet. The next it was behind them, then beside them, then above. And everywhere it went, ships died. The Judgment Lance fired, a beam of light so bright that sensors overloaded trying to measure it. The first cruiser it touched simply vanished. There was no explosion, no debris. The ship was there, and then it was not. Oran screamed orders at his captains. Form defensive positions. Concentrate fire. Target the enemy's engines. But his fleet was designed to fight enemies that followed the rules of normal warfare. The Retribution did not follow any rules. Small wormholes opened inside ships. The portals were tiny, no bigger than a fist, but they led directly into the heart of stars. Plasma hotter than anything in nature poured through these holes, incinerating crews and melting reactors. Ships exploded from within, torn apart by forces they could not see or understand. The battle, if it could be called a battle, lasted 11 minutes. In 11 minutes, 800 warships became wreckage. Hundreds of thousands of warriors died without ever landing a single effective hit on their enemy. The greatest fleet Oran had ever commanded was reduced to scattered debris and fatting heat signatures. Only 12 ships survived, including the flagship. They survived because Captain allowed them to survive. The Retribution appeared directly in front of Oran's bridge, so close that he could see the details of its hull through his. He looked at this impossible ship, this weapon that had destroyed everything he had built, and for the first time in 3,000 years he felt true fear. "Admiral Oran," Captain said, "look around you, look at what remains of your fleet, remember this moment, remember it for the rest of your life." Oran could not speak. His mouth moved, but no words came out. "I could kill you now," continued. "Every cell in my body wants to kill you. You murdered my father, you murdered my mother, you murdered 50,000 people who had done nothing to you. Death is what you deserve." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice cracked with emotion she could barely control. "But I am not going to kill you. I am going to let you live. Do you know why?" Oran finally found his voice. It came out as a whisper. "Why?" "Because I need you to deliver a message. Go back to your collective. Go back to your High Council. Tell them exactly what you saw here today. Tell them that 800 ships could not scratch our hull. Tell them that 11 minutes was all we needed. Tell them that this was one ship. One, we have 17. She let those words hang in the silence of space. "Tell them this was mercy, Admiral. Tell them that Earth chose to show mercy today. Tell them that mercy has limits. And tell them that if anyone in your collective is foolish enough to attack humanity again, there will be no more mercy. There will be no more warnings. There will only be extinction." The Retribution turned away from the crippled flagship. It moved toward the planet below, taking up a protective position above New Geneva. The 2 million humans on the surface were safe. Their guardian had arrived. Oran sat in his command chair, surrounded by the wreckage of his fleet and the bodies of his crew. He had come to teach humanity a lesson. Instead, humanity had taught him something. They had taught him terror. They had taught him helplessness. They had taught him what it felt like to be prey. He ordered his surviving ships to retreat. The journey back to collective space would take weeks. Weeks of staring at the empty spaces where his fleet used to be. Weeks of replaying those 11 minutes in his mind. Weeks of preparing to admit his failure to the High Council. As his flagship limped away from New Geneva, Oran looked back at the black ship that had destroyed him. Captain's words echoed in his head. This was mercy. If this was mercy, what would their anger look like? He was very afraid that the collective was about to find out. The Hall of Sovereigns had stood for 200,000 years. It was the largest structure in the galaxy, a floating palace where the leaders of the 12 races gathered to decide the fate of civilizations. Its walls had witnessed the rise and fall of empires. Its chambers had echoed with declarations of war and treaties of peace. Today, those chambers echoed with fear. Admiral Oran knelt before the High Council, his head bowed in shame. Around him stood the rulers of the 12 most powerful civilizations in existence. They listened in stunned silence as he described the Battle of New Geneva. 800 ships, he said, his voice hollow. Destroyed in 11 minutes. Their vessel absorbed everything we fired at it. Our weapons were useless. Our tactics were meaningless. They played with us like a child plays with insects. High Sovereign of the Hegemony slammed his fist against his throne. Lies! You are lying to cover your own incompetence. No single ship could defeat a fleet that size. I am not lying, Sovereign. Oran looked up, and the council saw something they had never seen in his eyes before, pure terror. I watched my ships die. I watched their weapon erase cruisers from existence. I have served the hegemony for 3,000 years. I have never seen anything like this. We cannot fight them. We cannot win. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate war against humanity. Others called for surrender. Ancient rivalries between the 12 races bubbled to the surface as fear stripped away their thin cooperation. Only the Etherian consciousness remained calm. The Etherians were the oldest race in the collective, beings of pure thought who existed partially outside normal space and time. Their representative, a shimmering cloud of light, floated above the chaos and spoke in a voice that silenced all others. We have analyzed the data from Admiral Oran's surviving ships. We have run 17 million probability simulations. The results are consistent across all scenarios. The chamber went quiet. Everyone knew that Etherian calculations were never wrong. Humanity cannot be defeated through conventional warfare, the Etherian continued. In 3 years, they have advanced beyond our 10,000 of development. Their technology violates principles we believed were fundamental laws of physics. They are an anomaly, they are unprecedented, and they are extremely dangerous. What do you recommend? Asked the representative of the Crystalline Collective, a race of silicon-based beings who valued logic above all else. Immediate cessation of all hostilities, formal recognition of human sovereignty, a treaty of non-aggression and mutual respect. This is the only path that does not end in our extinction. Roared with rage. Surrender? You want us to surrender to a species that has existed for barely 1,000,000 years? We are the masters of this galaxy. We will not bow to these animals. Then you will die, the Etherian said simply. All of you will die, your worlds will burn, your species will end. This is not opinion, this is mathematical certainty. The debate raged for hours. The 12 races could not agree on anything. Some supported the Etherian recommendation. Others stood with old hatreds and new fears mixed into a poison that paralyzed the council. Finally made a decision. He did not consult the full council. He did not seek consensus. He simply acted as they had always acted, with violence and arrogance. In secret, he contacted the leaders of 4 other races who shared his pride and fury. Together, they controlled more than half of the collective's military forces. Together, they made a plan. The humans have one weakness, told his co-conspirators. They are sentimental. They care about they call it the cradle of their civilization. If we destroy Earth, we destroy their spirit. Without their birthplace, they will collapse into grief and confusion. Then we will hunt down their remaining ships and finish what Iran failed to do. The 5 races assembled the largest fleet in galactic history. 12,000 warships gathered in secret, hiding in the dark spaces between stars. Every weapon, every soldier, every resource they could spare was dedicated to this single strike. They would attack Earth itself. They would burn the planet to ash. They would end the human threat forever. On Earth, humanity watched these preparations with growing concern. Their spy probes had detected the gathering fleet. Their intelligence analysts had decrypted enough enemy communications to understand the plan. The collective was coming for their home. President James called an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. Every leader, every general, every scientist who had contributed to humanity's transformation attended. The mood was grim but determined. 12,000 ships, General Stone reported. The largest fleet ever assembled by the collective. They are not coming to warn us. They are coming to kill us, all of us. Every man, woman, and child on Earth. Can we evacuate? A council member asked. No, there is not enough time, and even if there was, they would simply hunt down the evacuation ships. This is a war of extinction. They will not stop until every human is dead. Silence fell over the chamber. People looked at each other, seeing fear but also something else, something harder, something that had been forged in 3 years of silent preparation and one spectacular victory. President stood and addressed them all. My friends, my fellow humans, the moment we have prepared for has arrived. Our enemies believe they can break us by destroying our home. They think Earth is our weakness. He paused, looking around at the faces of humanity's leaders. They are wrong. Earth is not our weakness. It is our strength. It is the place where we learned to walk upright, where we discovered fire, where we built cities and wrote poetry and dreamed of the stars. Every human who has ever lived started their journey on this world. Every triumph and tragedy of our species is written in its soil. His voice grew stronger, filling the chamber with conviction. We will not let them take it. We will not run. We will stand here on the world of our birth, and we will show them what happens when you threaten humanity's children. They want extinction? Let them come. Let them bring their 12,000 ships, and let them learn that they are not the hunters. He slammed his hand on the table. They are the prey. The chamber erupted in cheers. Fear transformed into determination. Despair became defiance. These were human beings, descendants of survivors who had endured ice ages and plagues and wars and every disaster nature and history could throw at them. They would not go quietly. Orders were issued. The 17 Leviathan-class dreadnoughts moved into position around Earth. Scientists activated Project Genesis, a weapon that had been held in reserve for exactly this moment. Defense platforms powered up across the solar system. Every human who could fight prepared to fight. Captain Sarah stood on the bridge of the Retribution, now renamed the UNSS Prometheus II in honor of the ship that had started everything. She looked at her crew, young men and women who had trained their entire lives for this battle. "They killed our families," she said. "They burned our colony ship, they tried to make us slaves, and now they are coming to finish what they started." She smiled, and there was no fear in that smile, only certainty. "Let them come, we have been waiting for them, we have prepared for them, and when this day is over, the galaxy will know that humanity does not surrender. Humanity does not kneel, humanity fights." Across the solar system, her words were broadcast to every human who could hear them. "Today we defend our home. Today we protect our future. Today we show the collective what happens when you push humanity too far." She sat down in her command chair, the same chair where she had destroyed 800 ships with a single vessel. "All hands, battle stations. The enemy is coming. Let us give them a welcome they will never forget." In the darkness beyond the solar system, 12,000 alien warships began their final approach. They believed they were coming to destroy a helpless world. They believed they were coming to win an easy victory. They were wrong. They were coming to their doom. The alien fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 12,000 warships stretched across the darkness of space like a wall of death. Their commanders looked toward the distant blue dot that was Earth and felt confident. This would be easy. This would be quick. This would be the end of the human problem. High Sovereign commanded the fleet from his throne ship, the wrath of the largest vessel the collective had ever built. He watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. His spies had told him that humanity had only 17 of their new warships. 17 against 12,000. The numbers were overwhelming. "Begin the approach," he ordered. "Destroy everything in our path, leave nothing alive." The fleet advanced. They passed the orbit of Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn. With each planet they passed, their confidence grew. Where were the humans? Where were their mighty ships? Had they fled? Had they finally understood that resistance was hopeless? As the fleet approached Jupiter, they received their answer. 17 black shapes emerged from the shadow of the giant planet. The Leviathan-class dreadnoughts formed a perfect line between the alien fleet and Earth. They were tiny compared to the force arrayed against them, like drops of ink against an ocean of stars. Laughed, "That is their defense. 17 ships, prepare all weapons, erase them from existence." But before his ships could fire, something else appeared. All around the solar system, points of light began to glow. They were not stars. They were machines, thousands of them, arranged in a precise pattern that extended from the sun to the outer planets. Captain Sarah's voice broadcast across all frequencies, reaching every ship in the alien fleet. "High Sovereign, I am captain of the Human Defense Force. Your fleet has entered our solar system with hostile intent. You have been warned what would happen if you attacked humanity again. That warning was ignored. Now you will face the consequences." Sneered, "Consequences? What consequences can 17 ships deliver against 12,000? Your mathematics are as weak as your species. Surrender now, and perhaps we will make your deaths quick." "You still do not understand," replied. "Our 17 ships are not here to defeat you. They are here to witness what comes next." The glowing machines around the solar system activated. They were wormhole generators, part of Project Genesis, humanity's most terrible weapon. But these wormholes did not lead to distant stars or enemy ships. They led somewhere much closer. They led to the sun. Space itself seemed to scream as portals opened throughout the alien fleet. Through each portal came not missiles or energy beams, but something far worse. Superheated plasma from the sun's corona, material with temperatures of millions of degrees, poured through the wormholes directly into the heart of the collective armada. Ships did not explode. They did not burn. They simply ceased to exist as matter itself came apart under the impossible heat. Thousands of vessels vanished in the first second. Thousands more followed in the seconds after. Watched in horror as his mighty fleet dissolved around him. Ships that had conquered worlds were erased like drawings in sand. Warriors who had fought for died before they could even scream. The greatest military force in galactic history was being unmade by a weapon they could not fight, could not run from, could not even comprehend. "Retreat," screamed. All ships retreat. But there was nowhere to retreat. The wormholes were everywhere. Solar fire poured through space in every direction. The fleet scattered in panic, but the plasma followed them, guided by the human machines that opened new portals wherever the enemy tried to flee. The 17 Leviathan ships moved through the chaos like sharks through a school of fish. Their judgment lances fired at any vessel that escaped the solar flames. Their wormhole systems opened portals inside the largest ships, tearing them apart from within. They were not fighting a battle. They were conducting an execution. In 2 hours, 12,000 ships became none. Throne ship was the last to die. The human dreadnoughts surrounded it, their weapons pointed at its hull. Captain gave the High Sovereign one final moment to understand what had happened. "You came to destroy our home," she said. "You came to kill our children. You came believing you were gods and we were insects. Now look around you. Look at what remains of your fleet. Look at what your arrogance has cost you." Had no words. His fleet was gone. His warriors were dead. Everything he had built over thousands of years had been erased in 2 hours. "Earth sends its regards," said. Then she gave the order, and the wrath of joined its fleet in oblivion. When the battle ended, humanity did not celebrate. There was no cheering, no parades, no victory speeches. Millions of beings had died, even if those beings had come to kill. There was no joy in such destruction, only grim necessity. But humanity's work was not finished. Using their wormhole network, they opened portals above every world that had participated in the attack. The 5 civilizations that had followed saw human ships appear in their skis. They prepared for the end, for the extinction they had tried to inflict on others. Instead, they received a message. "Beings of the Galactic Sovereignty Collective, today we could have destroyed you, every world, every station, every life. We chose not to, but understand this clearly, Earth's mercy has limits." The message was broadcast simultaneously across 5 trillion beings. "The collective is dissolved. Your alliance of tyranny ends now. Any species that attacks humanity or our allies or any innocent civilization under our protection will face what your fleet faced today. Not war, not conquest, extinction, complete and absolute." The words hung in the silence of 1,000 worlds. "We did not want this. We wanted to explore the stars in peace. We wanted to meet new species and learn from them. You forced us to become something else. You forced us to become warriors. You forced us to become the nightmare that guards the galaxy's dreams." The final words were spoken slowly, ensuring that every being in the galaxy would remember them. "This is Earth's final warning. There will not be another." The wormholes closed. The human ships disappeared. And across the galaxy, civilizations that had ruled for began the long process of accepting their new reality. 200 years passed. The galaxy was different now. The old empires still existed, but they were smaller, weaker, humbled. The hegemony controlled only a handful of systems. The other races that had attacked Earth were similarly diminished. They lived in constant awareness of human power, knowing that any aggression would mean their end. But humanity had not become tyrants. They had become something else entirely. Trade routes that had been dangerous for millions of years were now safe. Smaller species that had lived in fear of the collective now flourished under human protection. Slavery, which had existed in the galaxy since before Earth formed, was abolished everywhere human influence reached. Wars of conquest became relics of the past. Admiral Sarah, now 120 years old but still strong thanks to human medical advances, stood on the bridge of the UNSS Prometheus III. Around her, stars glittered with the lights of civilizations that lived in peace because humanity stood watch. Her first officer, a young man named Thomas, stood beside her. "Admiral, do you ever think about what we became, the weapons we built, the things we did?" Was silent for a long moment. She remembered her parents, killed aboard the original Prometheus. She remembered the battles, the death, the terrible power she had wielded. She remembered the moment she could have killed Iran and chose mercy instead. "We became what we had to become," she said finally. "The question was never whether we could destroy them, it was whether we should. We had the power to end their civilizations completely. We chose not to use it. We chose mercy when they deserved annihilation." She turned to face Thomas, and he saw in her old eyes the same steel that had guided humanity through its darkest hour. "That is not what monsters do, Thomas. Monsters would have burned their worlds and laughed. We stopped when we did not have to stop. We protected those who could not protect themselves. We became the guardians the galaxy never had. She looked back at the stars, billions of worlds now sleeping safely because humanity stood watch. They called us young once, they called us weak, they called us prey. They learned we were none of these things, we were patient, we were furious, and when they pushed us too far, we became the nightmare that guards the galaxy's dreams. A message came through from Earth. A new colony ship was launching, carrying families to a distant world. More humans spreading across the stars, building homes, raising children, dreaming of the future. The work that the Prometheus had started continued, unstoppable now. Smiled, her parents would have been proud. "All stations," she said to her crew, "resume patrol. The galaxy is not going to protect itself." The Prometheus III turned and moved into the darkness between stars. A guardian watching over a universe that had learned, at terrible cost, never to threaten humanity again. In the memorial hall on New Geneva, a wall held the names of everyone who had died aboard the original Prometheus. Beneath those names, carved in letters of gold, were words that every human child learned by heart. They thought we were weak, they were wrong, they thought we would break, we did not. They thought they could destroy us, instead we became eternal. In memory of the fallen, in honor of the survivors, in warning to those who would threaten our children. Humanity endures, humanity remembers, humanity protects. The stars continued their ancient dance, indifferent to the civilizations that lived among them. But those civilizations knew something now that they had not known before. They knew that somewhere in the darkness, human ships were watching. Human weapons were ready. Human determination was unbreakable. And they knew, with absolute certainty, that attacking humanity again would be the last mistake anyone ever made. The end,